Hey, hi everyone. My name is Yash, and today I welcome you back to my YouTube channel Crazy Cloud. This is the fifth video of LWC learning series, and if you haven't watched the previous videos yet, I can provide the link in the description box below. You can go and watch them. So, in this video, we'll be talking about the decorators in LWC. So, without getting any delay, let's get started. So, today's topic is decorators in LWC. So whenever we hear this term decorator, what is decorator? Decorator is something which gives additional beauty to something, right? So we use decorators in our home. What does those decorators do? Those decorators are used to increase some beauty to our home, correct? The same logic is in LWC. So decorators in LWC are widely used to provide some more functionality to any JavaScript property. And when we say JavaScript property, it can be a variable or it can be a function. So suppose here is our HTML, here is our JS. Suppose in JS I have declared a variable name as name, correct? And in our HTML code, we are using this name variable. In previous video, we seen that any JavaScript property we can access in HTML, and how we can access it in HTML by using these curly braces, correct? So suppose there is a property, there is a variable named as name, which we have defined into our JavaScript code. So now currently this name cannot be used anywhere, right? Apart from this component, we cannot use this name variable anywhere outside this component. So what we'll do, we'll we'll add some prefix to this property so that it can have some more functionalities, correct? So decorators in LWC are widely used to add some more functionality to any JavaScript property, correct? So mainly there are three decorators which are widely used in LWC development. First is at the rate track, another one is at the rate API, third one is at the rate wire. So these three are the mostly used decorators in LWC development. So let's understand what these decorators are. So the first one is at the rate track. So as we seen that we have an HTML code where we are using name variable, and this name variable is defined into our JavaScript code, correct? Now if I add at the rate track as a prefix to this name variable, correct, what it will do, so whenever the value of name gets changed into the component, the whole component will get re-rendered, correct? And when we say re-rendered, it means suppose in the initial time frame the value of name was Yash, correct? And after some lines of code, anything, the name got changed to Yash Sethi. So who will take care of these name changes? Because in our HTML code, it is still Yash, correct? Because onto the load of the component, the value of the name was Yash, but later on onto this execution, the value got changed to Yash Sethi. But onto HTML part, onto UI component, it is still Yash, correct? So that's why we use track as a property, as a uh, decorators decorator. So what track do is, track track tells the browser to keep eye on this variable, right? You just track the changes. The name itself clears everything. It just tracks the changes of the properties. So Whenever the value of this name gets changed into the complete execution, the track variable, the track decorator will, uh, track decorator uh, int- will tell the HTML part that this value got changed. Correct? So after using this track, no matter how many times and where you are changing this variable value, the value of this variable, it will always get reflected onto UI and onto in the live time frame, right? It takes no time. Correct? This is the track decorator. Correct? This is the power of track decorator. But after 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 I guess Spring 20, after the Spring 20 release, Salesforce have made all the variables what say reactive. And what is reactive mean? Reactive. Reactive means which can tell the browser that yes, the value got changed. Correct? So now after Spring 20, we do not need to use track anymore. Correct? It was a quite popular decorators. It was quite popular decorator before Spring 20, but now it is not mandatory to use track. If you do not use track and you just specify the name variable as this, no matter what the value will get changed after the execution or between the execution, the value will always gets re, value will always get refreshed to the UI. Correct? So now at the track is not mandatory. It is completely your choice whether you want to use it or not. Let's come to our second decorator, which is at the rate API. So I think in this session, I'm not sure whether you will able to learn this at the API or not. But in future, in future videos, what we'll learn parent and child relationship. What is parent and child? Suppose this is your parent component, parent component, and this is your child component. So what we will do in later videos or later development, we'll use this child component inside our parent component into the HTML file, right? So now the child component will have the different data, different set of variables, different set of functions, and different set of code. Correct? And parent component will have its own different set of data, variable, methods, everything. Correct? But what will happen in upcoming videos, we will transfer some data from child component to parent component. Correct? So at the rate API is used in the child component to declare its variables or its functions as public. Suppose in child component you have created a variable as name. Now this name variable can only be used into this child component. It cannot be used in parent component. But if I want to pass the data of name, suppose the value of name is Yash. If I want to pass this value to its parent component, what we will do? Because right now we are not able to pass the data because this variable cannot be accessed outside of this component. So that's where at the rate API comes into the picture. So whenever you are using parent to child communication, sorry, child to parent communication or any parent to child communication, so you will use at the rate API, you will add at the rate API as a prefix. Like suppose you are adding at the rate API onto this name variable. So now name variable can be accessed by its parent. Suppose you have a function in child component which is child method. correct? And into this child method you have written 1,000 lines of code. Now you want to call this method from your parent component, not child component. So currently you are not able to, you will not be able to call this method from your parent component. What you need to do is you need to mark this as at the rate API. So what at the rate API will do, it will make this particular method, it will make this particular method as public. Public means any component can use this, not any component, the parent component can use this method. And if you are adding at the rate API ahead of this name variable, now name variable also can be accessed into our parent component, correct? So at the rate API decorator is used to, at the rate API decorator is used to make JavaScript properties or functions as public. Like it is used to mark those properties as public, so that the parent component can use those variables or use those methods. Now we have our third decorator, which is wire. So at the rate wire is basically used to bring our Salesforce data into our LWC component. We know that LWC is used to create some fantastic UI, correct, using the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But how can it access the data of our Salesforce org? Suppose into our Salesforce org, we have an object which is account, and in account object we have 100 records, correct? How can I show these 100 records into our LWC component? So to fetch the data of our Salesforce org, we use to fetch the data from our Salesforce org into our LWC component, we use at the rate wire, correct? So later on in the next upcoming videos, we'll see what at the rate wire is used for, or how we use at the rate wire. So do not get confused. Just remember that at the rate wire is used to fetch the data of our Salesforce org into our LWC component, correct? Okay, so let me summarize this video. Today we have learned that what are decorators in LWC. The summary is we have three decorators, which is at the rate track, second one was at the rate API, third one is at the rate wire. So at the rate track was used to just a second. Huh. So at the rate track was used to track the values of the variables, correct? So that so that the browser so that the HTML part can have the latest values. But after the spring 20, I'm not sure, but yes, spring 20 release, after the spring 20 release, at the rate track is no more recommended. If you do not use at the rate track decorator, it will not harm your component or anything. Every property after spring 20, every property, like every variable, every property of JavaScript is reactive, correct? So reactive means whatever changes happens into the execution, it will get reflected onto the HTML part, into the UI component, correct? So the first one was at the rate track. Second, we have at the rate API. At the rate API was used to make the properties of child component mark as public. Suppose we have one parent component, one is child component. Onto child component we have a variable as name. Now if I want to use this name variable into our parent component, without at the rate API we cannot use this. We can only use this name property into our child component. But what if we want to use this property into our parent component? We will just mark it as at the rate API, correct? It will declare this variable as public so that its parent component can use this. Okay, one more thing. Suppose there is a component C1 and there is C2 and there is C3. If C1 is parent of C3, correct? And C2 and C3 do not have any relationship. And we have at the rate API name in C3. So this name variable can only be used in C1, not in C2. C2 cannot use name variable, whether it is defined with at the rate API or not, because it is not the parent of C3, correct? Then we have at the rate wire. So at the rate wire is used to bring LWC. This is our Salesforce. At the rate wire is a decorator which is used to bring the data from our Salesforce org into our LWC component. So at the rate wire is nothing but a part of LDS. LDS is Lightning Data Services. Lightning Data Services is something that we do not need to call any Apex method manually or onto the user interaction, and we can get the data from Salesforce to our LWC. So it is a part of LDS, and at the rate API at the rate wire is used for bringing some data from Salesforce to LWC. So this was the summary of this video. These are the decorators, and these were the reasons why we use decorators. So let me show you how you will use these decorators. Suppose currently we do have this name variable, and this is a this component, the my first LWC is a child component of any another component. Now what I want, that name variable can be accessed into our the parent component, but currently it cannot. So what we'll do, we'll just use at the rate API as a prefix of this name variable. This is how we use these decorators. So do not get confused with anything. So let's practice these things. uh, Try to remember what decorators are and everything. So if you want this slide or anything, you can just ping me on LinkedIn, or you can comment down below this video. Until then, bye, and see you in the next video.